It's the week of April 2nd, 2018, and you're listening to the Missouri Pioneer GrowingPoint Agronomy podcast. Today we discuss key factors to consider while deciding when to go to the field. I'm your co-host, Pioneer Field Agronomist for Northwest Missouri, Jaime Farmer, and with me as always is Pioneer Field Agronomist for Northeast and Central Missouri, Nick Monnig. Nick, that's probably a pretty popular topic this year. If you think about previous years, we're in a little bit different situation here when the windows in previous years have opened quite a bit earlier. We still have lows here in this first week of April in those 20 to 30 degree Fahrenheit range with snow there on Easter and more snow in the forecast. Pretty wet conditions so far for a majority of the area, and so when you're thinking about trying to get out there to that field, your patience might get tested a little bit more so this year than it has in previous years. So with that in mind, we thought it'd be a good topic today to discuss when would be a good time to go to the field. So when you're thinking about that, there are really three main factors to consider when you go to the field. What would be the first one?
So really that first one, Jamie, when deciding when to go to the field would be soil moisture content. So that's probably the first and the most obvious one. But when our patience gets tested, it's usually the one that gets pushed the most. When we talk about the optimal soil moisture content, you ought to be able to take that soil within that first 2 to 4 inch range, crumble it between your fingers, and you really shouldn't be able to make a mud ball or to be able to make a ribbon out of it. You know, getting on fields too wet in the spring probably is the sin that's going to haunt you the rest of the year. That can lead to uneven emergence. It can also lead to sidewall compaction, which can limit root growth and really limit water or drought tolerance later on, nutrient uptake, and even standability.
Yeah, so if you're thinking about that, the first topic there being soil moisture, the next obvious one would obviously be soil temperature. So if you think about corn, ideal soil temperature for corn emergence is 85 to 86 degrees. We never are able to plant into that in northern Missouri. So, you know, typically for us, we try to find that 50 degree range. We find that final stands will greatly improve when we get 50 degrees or above. We want those 50 degree soil temperatures trending upwards in that seed zone. And ideally, we'd like 7+ days like that, but particularly just paying attention to that 48-hour period from planting and after. You know, if you think about different soil conditions affecting temperature, one of them would be soil residue. The residue will help to buffer that soil temperature a little bit and can keep it cooler. And also, planting depth can manipulate that soil temperature as well. You're a little bit more buffered at that 2 inches than if you were to shallow up a little bit.
Yeah, so soil moisture being the first, soil temperature being the second, and then that third big bucket would be looking at the forecast. So what we really want is 24 to 48 hour above 50 degree temperature forecast with no rain on that seed. So we want it to stay dry within that time frame. We talk about some of the National Corn Grower Contest winners. They really look at that 3 to 5 day forecast. They start looking further out. The worst possible thing that you could do is go out and plant right ahead of a cold rain event. That would be the worst thing in terms of stands. But you're much better off if we can get at least a couple days on that seed above 50 degrees with no rain. So really, those are the big three things to look at: soil moisture, soil temperature, and looking at that forecast. We've got moisture that's not too wet. We've got temperatures that are above 50 degrees and trending upward, no rain in the forecast. That really is the time to start thinking about pulling the trigger in terms of planting.
Yeah, there's a couple of other things that we like to keep in mind too when we're talking about that planting operation. Obviously, one of the major goals for us when we're out there planting our corn hybrid is looking for uniform emergence. So how your stand emerges from the ground is particularly important. Actually, one of the most important factors on yield potential, you know, above even plant spacing, population, or even when you plant within reason.
Couple of other ways that you can impact that uniform emergence. A lot of people think that it's just something Mother Nature deals to you, but you really have some control over that. And one of those being planting depth. So really surprised at how much depth impacts uniformity of emergence. So it helps buffer that soil temperature, helps keep that seed to soil to moisture content at the right ratio and keeps it even. We definitely want moisture there for that seed to be able to imbibe moisture all at the same time, get started at the same time. Plus, that planting depth, maintaining that optimal 2 inches is going to help us with drought tolerance, with nutrient uptake, with standability later on in the season. You really want to avoid planting anything less than 1 3/4 inch depth. And really, we want to target that 2-inch depth. So I've been on too many service calls, Jamie, and within my career where I've looked at corn that was planted too shallow being a problem. I've really never looked at anything being planted too deep as a problem. You also want to be sure that you check it frequently because conditions are going to change from field to field based on how the planter's set.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. One of the other things that is often all too common of a problem when we go out there, you're talking about service calls, is seeing where folks have gotten a little bit too antsy and have planted in conditions that were probably too wet. A lot of times planting into soil conditions that are too wet will lead to sidewall smearing, and that can also lead to uneven emergence. Planting operation really sets the stage for that hybrid for the rest of the season, and so if you're not successful in that operation and you lead to things such as shallow planting or planting into wet conditions with sidewall smearing, those are things that are really going to impact you throughout that corn hybrid's life.
Jamie, if uniform emergence is one of those things we need to keep in mind when we're starting to plant, and we really want that kind of an outcome. Another thing we need to keep in mind would be stress emergence scores. So you could ask your Pioneer sales professional what your stress emergence score is for the hybrids you've purchased. We do some pretty rigorous testing in terms of cold shock, in terms of stressful emergence conditions on all of our hybrids. And what we've determined, there are some large genetic variances between how hybrids perform under those stressful conditions. So my piece of advice would be if you're going to push the envelope in terms of soil temperatures, in terms of forecast, I'd select a hybrid with a good stress emergence score when it comes to those type of conditions.
Something else to keep in mind also when you're going out there to that field for that planting operation is to make sure that your planter settings are correct for the particular hybrid that you're planting. One of the most useful tools that Pioneer has out there available to the customer is the Pioneer Field 360 Plantability app. What this app does is basically allow you to come down to the batch level to find out what your particular planter settings need to be for that hybrid. That's pretty simple to use. You just scan the bag tag and input what your planter make and model is. Basically, all of that information is coming from a planter lab that Pioneer has where we test all the various planter makes and models out there with different seed size lots to determine what the ideal planter setting is for that particular hybrid. For those of you that are interested in checking out that Pioneer Field 360 Plantability app, just go to your Google Play or App Store and type in Pioneer Field 360 Plantability. One of the other ways would be to check your Walking Your Fields April edition for that link as well.
And on that point, Jamie, how would somebody go about getting signed up for the Walking Your Fields newsletter?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Nick. One of the easiest ways to get signed up for that is to opt in. So basically just reach out to your Pioneer sales professional and tell them that you would like to get signed up for the Walking Your Fields newsletter, and they can go in the system and input the particular email that you'd like it sent to and make sure that you start receiving those every month. And with that, we thank you all for your time. We thank you for listening. We look forward to speaking to you next week, a little bit covering some early soybean planting.
Yeah, Jamie, it's going to be pretty exciting. Throughout the winter months, we've heard a lot of buzz created on early soybean planting. Guys like Dr. Sean Conley or Dan Poston we had at our winter meetings talked about the fact that nothing drives soybean yield potential more than early planting. So pretty excited to talk about that topic.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to speaking with you all or seeing you in the field. So thanks again for your time and thanks for your business, and we hope you have a safe and successful planting season.